Hey everyone, so I'm going to answer a lot of your questions today, but first of all, I just wanted to talk quickly about a poll that I did recently on my channel. I asked all of you who is the best metal bassist, and Burton won by quite some margin, which, you know, I was expecting Cliff to win just because he's the bassist in metal that people talk about the most. He was also a key member of basically the most popular metal band of all time, but I have to say I wasn't expecting him to win by quite this much. Not everyone agreed though, and I think it's fair to say there was some pretty robust debate in the comments. I saw quite a lot of people saying that Cliff is really overrated and things like that, and so I thought I'd just give you my opinion on this. First of all, I completely respect everyone's opinion. You know, if you say that Cliff is overrated, that's perfectly fine by me. That's something that you think, and who am I to tell you you're not allowed to think that? If I were to pick one bassist on this list, it would be Cliff, as you could probably guess. I really love all of the bassists on this list, and that's actually one of the reasons that I picked them. But the reason that Cliff is my favorite is actually not because I think that he's the most technically talented out of all of these. To be fair, he has quite a big disadvantage over the fact that he died at the age of 24, whereas I would say most people reach their peak technical ability probably at 30 or later than that. But for the sake of being able to, you know, actually analyze this in a way that makes sense, I'm just going to talk about the stuff that we actually have, you know, the recordings, the live videos and stuff from when Cliff was alive, because that's all we have. So even though I think there are more technical bassists in metal than Cliff Burton, there's two main reasons why I would pick him on this list. The first reason is that his playing was just incredibly innovative and emotional. When you watch Cliff's live bass solos, you're impressed by, you know, the technique and the speed and everything, but what also really comes across is just the pure emotion in his playing. And that comes through in things like the way that he bends the notes, the wah tones that he gets, which sounds like someone singing in an emotional way. It was emotional, but also really innovative, and I just love innovation. I love bassists like Victor Wooten who did things that have never been done before on bass. I find that stuff really interesting and inspiring, and so that's one of my reasons why I would pick him. The other big reason why I would pick Cliff as the best metal bassist is because he was just such a great songwriter and composer. A lot of my favorite metal songs, and in fact just favorite songs of all time, were at least co-written by Cliff. You know, you've got songs like Master of Puppets, Fade to Black, For Whom the Bell Tolls, Orion. These were all co-written by Cliff, and they're some of my absolute favorite songs. To be fair, I actually don't really know exactly how much, you know, and which parts of those songs he wrote. I'm sure one of you in the comments is more knowledgeable on Cliff Burton and Metallica lore than me, but the fact that he had, you know, even if it was only a small part, I just think those songs are so magical, and the fact that he was a part in writing them is just another reason why he's my favorite metal bassist. So that's the thing, is that even though his stuff was not the most technical that has ever been done in the history of metal, technique, to me, is only important insofar as it helps you make great music. So anyway, those are my reasons why I would pick Cliff on this list. Again, if you guys picked someone else, that's completely fine. I'm not saying you're wrong or anything. This is all very subjective. A technically more accurate way of phrasing it would be, who is your favorite bassist in metal? And I could ask that, but I do like, you know, I think it's fun to have a little bit of this like competitive spirit on this channel, and it's all just for fun at the end of the day. All right, now it's time to answer some of your questions. In your opinion, what is genuinely the hardest song, not your own, to play on bass? A lot of songs are hard for different reasons, and depending on what techniques you're good at, some songs might be much harder for you but easier for someone else, and vice versa. But if I had to pick one song, it would probably be something by Jaco Pastorius. I'm thinking something along the lines of Havona or something like that. It's just an absolutely crazy bass line, and it's all done on fretless, which just takes it to a whole new level of difficulty. What was your motivation to keep learning and improving for such a long time? It was definitely very much a sort of intrinsic motivation. It wasn't, you know, necessarily me visualizing great success or being on stage in front of loads of people. Those things have never really been my main motivation. I've always just loved the way that music makes me feel when I hear it and when I play it. I've always just found that the more I practice, the more I can make music that I think sounds great. I think one of the best feelings in the world is putting a lot of effort into something and then seeing amazing results come from it. And that's honestly probably one of the biggest motivations that I've found over the years. How long did it take you to become such a great bassist? I actually started playing bass 5 years ago and I'm still not as awesome as you. Okay, so 5 years is not a hugely long time to have been playing bass in the grand scheme of things, so don't worry if you haven't reached the level that you want to be in 5 years, okay? I've been playing bass for, what is it now? Almost 20 years, so don't worry about where you are right now. I don't think I was a particularly good bassist after 5 years. So do you think your bass style would fit into a full band mix, and how? All right, this is a very interesting question, and first of all I would say a lot of the stuff that I play on my channel, I wouldn't play like that if I was playing in most bands. First of all, in most bands, no one's expecting me to be playing the lead the whole time. That's incredibly rare. Usually it's the singer or the lead guitarist who's taking the lead, and they don't want someone else trying to be taking the lead while they're doing their thing. Having said that, I think it's definitely possible to have a band where the bassist is playing a lot of lead stuff, and in fact, you know, a lot of my stuff on YouTube, if you listen to it, there is a full band. There's drums, guitars, there's keys. And so I think this kind of, you know, lead, slap and tap bass style, it can fit into a full band mix. I just think the music has to be arranged in a way where you know that the bass is going to be the lead, and so the other instruments have to kind of adapt to fit around the bass. What is your compositional process? Do you start with a video goal and write towards that, or do you just mess around and whatever seems cool you morph it into a video song? So it definitely varies by, you know, from video to video, song to song. Sometimes I come up with a crazy idea like I'm gonna slap a grand piano, and then I figure out how to do it. Other times, like you said, I just kind of mess around on the instrument, or even just try and hear melodies in my head and then, you know, start writing a composition around that and then figure out how to turn it into an interesting video later. How do you approach difficult and challenging songs? Do you break them into parts, or do you just keep playing through the whole thing until you get it? Just wondering, because personally I like to just wing it, and most of the time I don't actually have a structured process when learning challenging pieces. So whenever I'm learning anything difficult, I definitely break it down into chunks. Sometimes the chunks can be as small as just 1 bar. I remember when I first learned You Can't Hold No Groove, I would literally just take it 1 bar at a time. I would loop 1 bar over and over, and then I would get that down, and then I'd loop the next bar over and over, and then I would loop both of those 2 bars together, and then I go on to the 3rd bar, and so on. I think it's really hard to learn a very difficult song by just trying to play all the way through over and over again. Personally, I wouldn't recommend that. I would say you should probably try and break it down into small chunks, master each chunk, and then put the chunks together. When, where, and how much for your Schecter signature bass? It's awesome. Alright, so my signature bass is going to be available on the 27th of November, which is also Cyber Monday, and you can buy it on the Schecter website. I absolutely love the way that it's turned out, and I think you will too, and it's going to be $14.99. Question, is Paul McCartney in your top 10 greatest bass players? Yeah, I would say he's in my top 10. I'm not exactly sure where I would put him, but he would make the list. What was your first bass guitar, and could we have a short demo if you still have it? I have exactly that video on YouTube. Check it out. What was the thought process in the design for the Schecter signature? Looks cool, man. Thank you. I knew I wanted it to be kind of deep dark blue. That's just a color that I really like, especially on basses. The red stripes down the middle actually was not my idea. That was Colin at Schecter who came up with that. And I just really liked it. I think it looks really cool and a little bit metal. I don't know if you've noticed, but there's also a pretty deep cutaway which lets you access the 24th fret really easily. That's something that I think is really important to me because, you know, I'm often playing pretty high up when I'm doing lead stuff. Your original compositions and covers are always full of such beautiful classical melodies and harmonies. What is your opinion of the jazz fusion style as popularized by bassist YouTuber Adam Neely? Would you ever write a composition in this style, or perhaps even a collaboration with Adam Neely himself? So yeah, I think one of the reasons that my compositions often sound like they have classical influence is because that's actually the first style of music that I played. So my very first introduction to playing music was playing classical piano at the age of 7. So I would say that the kind of classical style is very much built into me at this point because I've been playing it since I was very young. So classical harmony and melody is what comes to me the most naturally. I do enjoy jazz fusion, and maybe I'll try writing more in that style in the future, but I have to say, you know, the more classically inspired stuff is what I find I'm best at. How are you, Charles? I'm good. And love the content, not a huge fan of bass, but your playing is mesmerizing and never disappoints. Well, I am impressed that I have managed to get you to enjoy my channel even though you're not a fan of bass. I'm pretty happy about that, so thank you. All right, so my camera ran out of battery, which I guess is a sign that I need to stop, but thank you guys so much for all of your questions, and thanks for watching. I'm working on some really cool, unique videos, which are very different from anything else that I've done before, so keep a lookout for those, and I'll see you in the next video.